Each archaeological find offers a unique opportunity to learn more about our ancestors. These discoveries can reveal insights into their beliefs, workplaces, and even their diets. New archaeological breakthroughs are constantly occurring, and on this channel, we're dedicated to sharing most exciting ones with you as they happen. Below, we've highlighted some recent discoveries, including a few remarkable paleontological finds for added interest. There are very few places on Earth that didn't once play host to dinosaurs, which means you might never be far from a potential dino discovery if you keep your eyes peeled. In late 2020, Simon and Jessica Owens were out looking for shark teeth on the banks of the Stono River in South Carolina, USA. They found something a lot more special than that. This 6-inch long tooth doesn't come from a shark. It belongs to a megalodon that lived and died 5 million years ago. The coastline of South Carolina would have been entirely submerged beneath the water back then, which would have made it the perfect hunting ground for the enormous creature. Just from looking at this single tooth, you can get an impression of how enormous a full-size megalodon must have been. Most estimates give them a length of more than 60 feet. The whole coast of South Carolina has proven to be a great place to go looking for dinosaur fossils, but the majority of significant finds are made by professionals. Simon and Jessica can consider themselves very lucky and now have their dinosaur tooth on display above their mantelpiece at home. There's no way to dress up our next ancient discovery. It's exactly what it looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 30,000-year-old siltstone thallus. It was used precisely for what you think it was used for. But that wasn't its only use. The ancient relic, which was discovered in a cave in Germany in 2010, is undoubtedly the world's oldest sex toy. But experts at the University of Tübingen think it may also have been used to light fires. There are marks on its surface where it has been struck against splints. The more polished end of the phallus comes complete with carved rings, the purpose of which we'll leave up to your imagination. The multi-purpose pleasure tool was in more than 12 pieces when it was found, but it has been lovingly put back together by experts. We'll never know why it was smashed in the first place, but if the ancient residents of German caves were anything like the people of today, then it might have been the work of either a frustrated woman or a jealous boyfriend. Still though, it was probably for the best. We can't imagine it was the most hygienic of toys. What's now known as the Shrewsbury Hoard was discovered in Shrewsbury, England in October 2011. At the time, it was one of the largest and most significant Roman coin discoveries in British history. More than 9,000 coins were found in total, all of which were discovered by amateur metal detectorist Nick Davies, who was new to the hobby at the time of his lucky break. Most of the coins were still inside the enormous ceramic pot they were buried within, although some had begun to spill out of the sides. Most of the coins are bronze nummi, which were common coins of the 3rd century, and the total amount inside the pot is equivalent to about a year's salary for a Roman legionary soldier. For those reasons, historians think that the pot might represent the equivalent of somebody's life savings. The most recently minted coins were created between the years March and March, with the coins at the bottom of the pot being around 10 years older than that. So it's apparent that the collection was built up very slowly over several years. During the early 1990s, the Sycan Archaeological Project excavated a tomb in Peru and found an ancient mask on the face of a skull. There's nothing unusual about burials like that in Peru, but there is something unusual about the mask. It's elaborately decorated and painted, and some of the paint contains human blood. The blood appears to have been mixed with bird eggs to create a vivid red pigment. Experts have never seen a burial like this before or since, and don't know what to make of it. They don't know the identity of the person buried in the tomb, but there is a confidence that he was a member of the Sikkim culture's social elite when he passed away roughly 1,000 years ago. The skeleton itself was also painted red, but was buried away from the head and positioned upside down in a square pit. The head was the right way up. There must surely have been a purpose to this positioning, but we can't even make an educated guess as to about what it might have been. Perhaps the blood was intended to be a life force for the rebirth of this significant individual. We know very little about the Pictish people who once lived in Scotland because they left behind no written records. Every Pictish discovery is a priceless opportunity to learn more about them, so archaeologists were especially excited to find a partially preserved Pictish skeleton inside a 1,400-year-old cemetery in Taradale on the Black Isle in late 2019. The soil in the region is highly acidic, so it's rare for bones to survive for long after they are buried. Because of that, very little has ever previously been learned from Taradale, despite the fact that it is the largest known Pictish burial ground in Scotland. The bones of the person buried here are little more than black stains on the ground, and the coffin they were buried with looks like little more than a shadow. But it's possible to determine that the hands and feet of this individual were bound when they were buried. That could mean that this person was buried alive. Alternatively, it could mean that Pictish burial customs called for the dead to be buried with their limbs bound, so they didn't fight their way out of their coffins and try to return to the land of the living. We need to find more burials before we can develop a theory on that, and finding them is easier said than done. Looking for the beginning of the beer trade? Look no further than the ancient site of Abydos in Egypt. Here we see a brewery that was making the beverage on an industrial scale 5,000 years ago. It is one of the oldest beer-making facilities ever discovered and certainly the oldest capable of making beer in significant amounts. Egypt was a brand new country when the first beer was produced here, having been united by King Narmer. Perhaps this brewery was created to help people celebrate their new unity. It's a massive site with 8 brewing units and 40 basins. The beer made here would have been fairly primitive, but would have been effective. It probably tasted quite sour, but would have been fairly strong. Historians aren't sure whether the people of Egypt came here for religious or recreational reasons. We know that the Egyptians sometimes used alcohol in religious ceremonies, but surely that can have accounted for every drop of the stuff that was brewed in Abydos. Workers needed to blow off steam even back then, so at least some of the produce must have been used on social occasions. Back when the Romans occupied Spain, there was a Roman leader living in Valle de Domingo in the Cuenca province who was so rich that he imported his wine from Syria. His villa was so large that even the dining room covered more than 1,000 square feet. Historians call it Villa de Nogueira, and they have been in the process of excavating it for more than 10 years. They have found some astonishing works of art in the process, including the largest known figurative Roman mosaic in the world. Less than 10% of the villa has been fully excavated thus far, but has already yielded the largest collection of marble sculptures ever found in Roman Hispania. The site is so enormous that archaeologists don't yet know its full size, but the villa might cover an area of more than a square mile. It's an impossibly massive structure, yet we don't know the name of the person who built or owned it. The kings and emperors of Europe at the time would have been humbled by the lavish nature of Villa de Nogueira and what was inside it. So how can history have forgotten who lived here? In March 2022, a collection of stone tools were discovered by archaeologists in Xi'anbei, China. That might not sound unusual, given that all of our ancient ancestors used stone tools at some point, but these tools are special. Firstly, they're around 40,000 years old. Secondly, they don't look anything like other stone tools that experts have ever seen before. The tools are mostly bladelets, some of which are still attached to fragments of the bone handles they were once attached to. These bladelets appear to have been used for everything from boring wood to scraping hides and whittling plant matter. Just under 400 tools have been recovered from the site thus far. As far as we know, no other group of Homo sapiens, Denisovans, or Neanderthals used tools like this at the time. This might have even been the equivalent of a Pleistocene era workshop where the tools were made. Their activities stained the ground red with ochre, which may have been used for tanning animal hides. Experts think that the inhabitants of Xi'an were human rather than Denisovan or Neanderthal, but they're unable to be certain and can't say which group they might have belonged to. It's possible they were an entirely unique culture. If the Chinese discovery we've just looked at could be called a 40,000-year-old tool workshop, perhaps we can call this next discovery a 100,000-year-old art studio. It's Blombos Cave on the south coast of South Africa, not far from Cape Town. Archaeologists who've been combing through the cave in recent years have identified evidence of prehistoric fishing along with sharp stone tools, but they've also found evidence that the cave's interior was used to mix and store red ochre. Experts have found plenty of pieces of ochre, but they've also found shells used as containers for the pigment and bowls used for grinding it. They even think that animal bones and charcoal found elsewhere in the cave might have been mixed with the ochre as part of the process. The ochre might have been used for painting and decoration, or it might have even been used as a skin protection. If the theories of the experts are correct, this could have been the very beginning of the human conceptual ability to combine, source, and store substances that assisted their social practices. Even then, though, we won't know why red ochre was so important to so many of our most ancient ancestors all over the planet. Speaking of ancient and significant art workshops, let's look at the Bhimbetka rock shelters of Rice in India. This enormous repository of ancient art was discovered entirely by accident, but the paintings on its walls are thought to be 30,000 years old. This is the largest collection of prehistoric art in India, and might even be the oldest in all of Asia. These shelters themselves were carved by wind and rain, and might have been used as shelter by India's earliest human residents over 200,000 years ago. There are 760 shelters in total, 500 of which contain paintings. Most of the scenes depict local animals and birds along with hunting scenes, although there are also a few representations of what are thought to be gods or mythological creatures. Their colors have faded over time, but the original shades of yellow, green, red, and white are still visible. It's clear that this collection of art was maintained and added to for a very long time. While the oldest paintings are undoubtedly 30,000, the most recent was added barely 1,000 years ago. As such, the site could be viewed as a long-running visual record of human life in this part of India, which is one of the many reasons why the Bhimbetka rock shelters were added to the UNESCO list of World Heritage Sites in February 2003. It's not often that archaeologists get to confirm the discovery of a whole previously unknown city, but it happened close to Kilkis in Greece in November 2021. There, a research team believes that they found the remains of an entire city hidden in the municipality of Paeonia. They don't currently have any idea what the city was called, but they believe that they will eventually discover that secret as the dig progresses. So far, they have identified the city's wheat fields and 3 large burial mounds. These single-chamber tombs within the burial mounds are Macedonian in style, which provides a clue to the city's potential age. Tomb 1 is the most impressive of those that has been opened so far, featuring a double-arched roof, a burial bed, and marble double doors. The tomb is likely to be about 2,400 years old, but that hasn't been confirmed. The city itself is thought to cover an area of just over a square mile, with a road running straight through the middle of it. The fact there is so little of it visible to the naked eye suggests that it was completely obliterated, probably by war or disaster. But further excavations will hopefully tell us how, why, and when. Now we go from an unknown city to one of the world's most famous, London, England. There, experts have found a collection of ancient Roman correspondence, including what's thought to be the oldest Roman handwritten note in Britain. Rather than being written in ink, though, the messages on these tablets are carved into wood using a stylus in a layer of wax. There's even a date on one of them, specifically January 8th in the year 57. Archaeologists, the tablets were found in the mud of the Walbrook, which was a river back then, but is now a buried stream. Other correspondence includes more requests for beer, food orders, stock takes, and some of London's earliest legal rulings. In the words of archaeologist Sophie Jackson, they are letters from the first ever Londoners. One of them even contains business advice, with one friend writing to another imploring them to stop lending people money because it's not in their interest to do so. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors worshipped a wide variety of creatures in the belief that they were earthly representations of gods. We know of civilizations that worship lizards, lions, cats, and birds, but this first discovery is a new one for us. It's a mural in northern Peru that was found in early 2021 and appears to be a shrine to a spider god. The team of experts responsible for the discovery believe it to be around 3,200 years old. As if the idea of worshipping a spider wasn't odd enough, this particular ancient spider has been depicted wielding a knight. It was probably carved and painted by the Kupasnik culture who lived in the northern Peruvian coast in pre-Columbian times. We think that spiders were associated with both rain and fertility, which would explain why the shrine was made close to a river. There was probably a larger temple at the site, but unfortunately, that appears to have been destroyed by local farmers expanding their sugarcane and avocado plantations. What's left of the site, including this unique mural, will now be preserved for further study. If we asked you to think of an Australian animal, almost all of you would say kangaroo. The connection between the country and the animal is well known and well established, and it goes back thousands of years. In fact, as of February 2021, we can say with confidence that the oldest rock painting in Australia is a portrait of a kangaroo. The 6-foot-tall mural has been found in a rock shelter in the Kimberley region and has been assessed as being 17,500 years old based on the ages of wasp shelters found above and below it. The rock shelter is close to the Drysdale River on the Nangongo clan estate and is officially the oldest known in situ painting ever found anywhere in the nation. What's really exciting archaeologists is the fact that the style of the painting is similar to that seen in the cave paintings found on the islands of Southeast Asia, some of which are 40,000 years old. That suggests an incredibly ancient cultural connection between the locations, one which was previously unknown before the painting was found. The search is now on for further evidence of this possible link. Like much of Europe, France was once part of the Roman Empire. Back then, it was known as Gaul, and traces of its Roman occupation can still be found all over the country. In February 2021, archaeologists began excavating the remains of 2 ancient Roman houses in the city of Nîmes, houses that appear to have belonged to extremely high-ranking Roman officers. The Romans knew Nîmes as Colonia Namaskis, and occupied it around 20-50 years ago, eventually turning it into an administrative center from which they governed the south of the country. There were around 60,000 people living here, enjoying facilities like gymnasiums, temples, amphitheaters, and a building that may even have been a circus. The 2 newly discovered domes contain entrance halls, central halls, atriums, bedrooms, large dining rooms, studies, and kitchens. One of them has a stunning marble floor with checkerboard decorations and underfloor heating. This would have been the peak of high society living 2,000 years ago. In fact, there are plenty of people living in Nîmes today who don't enjoy this standard of luxury. The owners of the homes haven't been identified yet, but the archaeologists hope that identification may eventually be possible. It's a sad fact that not all of the animals that existed in ancient times have survived to the modern day. Extinction is an ongoing process and currently threatens many modern species. In some cases, we're able to identify an extinct species by finding its remains. But in other cases, we're reliant on ancient artwork. In February 2021, researcher from the University of Queensland identified an extinct species of speckled goose in a 4,600-year-old Egyptian painting. Dr. Anthony Romilio says the bird, seen in a painting known as Mitam geese, differs from modern red-breasted geese because of the patterns on its breast and wings. The artwork is realistic, so there's no reason to believe that the artist applied artistic license when painting the goose. This appears to be a pictorial record of a type of goose that no longer exists in the world today. And it would have been missed were it not for Dr. Romilio's sharp eye. Egyptian art has already been used to identify extinct species of donkey, gazelle, and antelope, as well as the auroch. And now we can add geese to that list. The Yanxi ruins in China have been known to archaeologists since their discovery in 1983. But it appears that the first archaeologists to investigate the site missed something rather important. To be more specific, they appear to have overlooked the oldest urban water system ever discovered in China. A team working at the site in January 2021 has identified the remains of a water system that dates back to the early Shang dynasty some 3,600 years ago. Based on the evidence at the site, it appears that the water system was separated into 2 systems, an internal system and an external system. The primary use of the internal system was drainage, with the external system flowing out into 2 river courses and a moat. A connection between the 2 systems would have allowed for drainage, preventing Yanxi from becoming waterlogged, while simultaneously feeding a water landscape for the city's enormous palace, covering over 10,000 square feet. As there would have been no template for these early hydraulic engineers, this has to be counted as one of the most impressive technical achievements of the era. England's capital city of London is one of the biggest and busiest modern cities in the world. It's difficult to imagine it without the offices, skyscrapers, and millions of people. Even if we were to go back in time 2,000 years, we'd find a thriving Roman city called Londinium, standing where London is now. But this was once a place full of wild animals. Evidence has been found in the city that proves that lions once prowled the land, and hippos swam down the River Thames. The remains of elephants and hippos have been found during excavation work underneath Trafalgar Square, along with the fossilized skeletons of wild cats and wolves. It's thought that most of the exotic animals arrived between the 2 ice ages during a time when England was still connected by land to the rest of Europe. The country would have been much warmer back then, so it would have been a perfect habitat for the kind of animals you'd now be more likely to find in safari parks. The animals would have become trapped after the land connection to Europe disappeared, eventually leading to their disappearance as the temperature cooled. We know that the ancient Egyptians were very adept at preserving their dead by mummifying them. But until recently, we've not entirely been sure how they went about some of the more delicate tasks that the process demanded of them. That's changing thanks to the recent discovery of a medical instruction manual written on papyrus 3,500 years ago. This is the oldest mummification manuscript ever discovered. Mummification was considered a sacred ritual in the Egypt of the time, and so knowledge was reserved to a small number of individuals who mostly passed the secrets of the process on to their students orally. Written guides are so rare that this is only the third manual we've ever found. Among the new information that's been gleaned from the text is how to embalm the face of the deceased. The process involved cooking a blend of aromatic plants, applying them to linen cloth, and then applying it to the face and leaving it for days. This is consistent with what we already know about the process, which took a whole 68 days divided into 4-day chunks. Yet again, the sophistication of the process underlines how advanced the Egyptians were when it came to their knowledge of the physical sciences. You might not have given much thought to the question of where the world's oldest pool of water is, but it has to exist somewhere. And the answer is Timmins, Ontario, Canada. The existence of the pool has only been known about since 2018, but it's thought to have been around for close to 2 billion years. You find it at the bottom of the Kidd Creek Mine, which is the deepest base metal mine in the world. Scientists found a pool of 1.5 billion-year-old water in the mine in 2013, but this new discovery, made at a depth of 2 miles below the surface, has it beaten by around 500 million years. It's possible to date the water because of the concentration of gases within the liquid. As the water ages, it absorbs argon, helium, and xenon. The water is valuable to scientists for more reasons than just being old. They hope it might contain traces of ancient organisms, thus providing them an insight into life on Earth all that time ago. If the idea of 2-billion-year-old water has blown your mind, just consider the fact that around half the water on Earth came from interstellar ice and is older than the Sun itself. We know very little about the ancient Etruscans. They lived on the Italian peninsula some 2,500 years ago before the rise of the Roman Empire. But we've never been able to translate their language, so their culture is a mystery to us. That's why Etruscan paintings are so important as a record of their civilization. And it's also why archaeologists got very excited when a new technique revealed previously invisible scenes in ancient Etruscan paintings in February 2021. The technique, known as multi-illumination hyperspectral extraction, involves taking multiple pictures of the paintings using every known band of light and then processing them through a computer using an algorithm. The process restores colors that are no longer visible to the naked eye because they've faded over time. That in turn allows detail to appear where there once was only a monochrome blur. A previously invisible human figure has now been identified in a painting known as the Tomb of the Monkey. And another painting has finally been identified as a depiction of the underworld complete with trees and water. These are only little steps along the way to getting to know the Etruscans better. But it's a start. The blockbuster 1990s movie Jurassic Park was based on the idea that dinosaurs could be brought back to life by using DNA from mosquitoes that drank the blood of the giant prehistoric lizards and then became trapped in amber. We're still not quite there in terms of real-world science, but we've recently found a 99-million-year-old tick trapped in amber with a belly full of dinosaur blood. Unfortunately, there's no dinosaur DNA left inside it. So we still can't open a real Jurassic Park, but it's a fascinating discovery nonetheless. It is so well preserved that there are even traces of dinosaur feather attached to it. It might not allow us to recreate dinosaurs in a laboratory, but it does have the potential to give us new information about the way blood-sucking ticks have evolved on Earth. They've existed on our planet for hundreds of millions of years and appear to have been as much a pest to the dinosaurs as they are to animals and humans today. They might only be tiny, but they're survivors. In January 2021, Russian divers plunged into the sea off the coast of Tartus in Syria and found the remains of an ancient Roman port city. The marine archaeologists who belong to Sevastopol State University took plenty of pictures of their find and also brought a few objects back to the shore, including household tools and plenty of Greek and Roman amperage. The major discoveries are still down there though, including the remains of a 1st-century lighthouse. This port was formerly part of the island of Arvid, which was originally occupied by the Phoenicians approximately 3,500 years ago, but later sank below the waves for reasons unknown. While the lighthouse obviously can't be brought back to the surface, the archaeologists hope to be able to do more digging in the near future and retrieve something a little more interesting than the tools and ceramics they've managed to scoop up thus far. We know that many of the people watching this video will enjoy a beer or two. It might even have a taste for rare and unique beers. But how far would you go to indulge that taste? Would you, for example, go as far as a team of scientists in Canada who found a 125-year-old beer at the bottom of Halifax Harbor last year, then opened it in January this year to taste it? The bottle of India Pale Ale was brewed at Alexander Keith's Nova Scotia Brewery, a company that still trades today and was theoretically still fine to drink because the cork was still secure and watertight. These scientists decided to sample it in the name of research, and reviews were decidedly mixed. Some described it as acidic and bitter with hints of cherry and oak, whereas others said it was disgusting with a strangely meaty taste. While none of the research team got sick from drinking the beer, they all agree that if you find a century-old bottle of beer at the bottom of a lake, stream, or harbor near you, it's probably not a great idea to drink. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.